All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West Southwest Milwaukee School Board to order. Ms. Steele, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Kaiser.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Mrs. Carr.
Here.
Mr. Sikich.
Present.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Ms. Deal.
Here.
President Lee.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
There are no modifications.
All right, we're going to move forward with item 6, our public budget hearing. So I just have a few introductory comments for those who are unfamiliar with the public budget hearing. We have this every year. It happens roughly 1 month before the board will take action on the budget for the 24-25 school year. This is an opportunity for the public to see what is being proposed for our budget for this next year, as well as ask any questions that may have. There will be, after the presentation by Mr. Norris, an opportunity for anyone here who wants to make a comment on the public hearing, public budget presentation to do so. If there's questions that relate to that are simple, those can be answered at that time, but anything that involves more in-depth response will happen between now and when that public budget hearing, when the budget will be taken action on at the end of October. So with that preamble, I'll just turn over to Mr. Norris for the presentation.
All right, well, thank you so much this evening. And this is a accumulation of literally almost 9 months of work on behalf of the school board and the administration, and certainly our executive association and our larger community. So I want to thank you each for your support and all the efforts you guys have taken to get here. So for this evening, I prepared the annual budget hearing packet for your review. We won't go through this specifically, but a lot of the things that you'll see in the presentation are pulled out of here to be able to highlight kind of where we're at. Some of the things that we'll go through are not new. As I mentioned before, this has been an ongoing process through our prelim tax levy number 1 and number 2. But per the state of Wisconsin, I have my notes here. Under statute section 120.08, the annual meeting is required, as Mr. Lee had mentioned. Additionally, you'll see on the agenda a requirement for us to review and discuss the OPEB updates for the school year, as well as mentioning our energy efficiency debt that we'll discuss as well. So with that, I will jump to the presentation and feel free to ask questions throughout if you'd like. So our mission statement, just kind of a way to level set and begin the meeting every day. The school district focuses on equity through deeper learning, fosters a sense of belonging, educates the whole child through so every learner achieves success. I mentioned here kind of for the annual meeting, our school board and their positions, as well as our cabinet and administrative staff that have also helped to lead us to where we are tonight. So the budget adoption timeline. So obviously we're here tonight, September 9th. There's a few different significant dates that help to carve out and finalize the school district's budget. Number 1, the third Friday count in September, that falls on September 20th this year. That is the revenue date for school districts. So students in the schools, members are defined by students who attend our schools that are residents, as well as students that are residents that attend other public school districts. So the count is more than just kids attending our schools. So that will take place throughout the next few weeks. Students who miss the count on the 20th have to be in attendance both one day before and one day after, I believe up until the 29th before the count is finalized by October 1st. October 1st, then leading right up to that is the date that DPI releases equalized property values. At this point, we have an estimated projection that we'll share tonight with you guys. Generally, that's pretty close to what it actually comes in at. The big date for our school district, and I would say all really, but for us certainly is the 15th. The 15th is when the state certifies all the audits done for last school year. So that will complete the process for them to finalize how much money did school districts spend. Certainly aid is calculated off how much money school districts spend. So if districts are allocated X amount of dollars and they spend less than X, then their aid gets adjusted for the following year. So when you take into account equalized property value and aid, that helps school districts finalize and the state adjusts and finalizes your aid for the upcoming school year, which allows us to finalize our tax levy, right? The 20th, I think it's the 21st. Sorry, the 21st is when the board will hear the final budget, and then the 10th is when we send the certified tax levies to our municipalities, all 4 of them. So revisions, what's new, right? We've been discussing this for about 9 months now, certainly the last 3 or 4. The main updates are aid projections we have updated based on equalized property value and the July 15th aid update. The July 15th aid update is off of what districts budgeted. It's not off actual. So that's the difference between the 15th of July and the 15th of October. So certainly we hope it's close, but from things that we've seen and heard, we know that can change. So anyway, either way, that'll come through soon. And then updated mill rate and adjusted AGR revenue for the school year. So the school districts across the state received funding through the revenue limit, and it's a pretty quick, easy formula to go through. So it's resident membership times number of members. Again, members are defined as kids who are residents attending our school and residents attending other area non-resident districts. A student here attending our public school district would be considered our member, right? So the number of students times per pupil plus exemptions, both one-time and ongoing, give you your total revenue limit authority. How that looks for our school district, we have about 7650 is our projection. Again, that gets certified on the third Friday count, multiplied by our per pupil, which this year is $11,403, which if you add that, the addition to that, the one-time recurring exemptions are declining enrollment, energy efficiency, which is considered a Fund 38 debt, which we're nearly done with, and then private vouchers. That includes both the private vouchers and the special needs scholarship. That of that 10 million, that is about 7.5 of that number. And then we also have a transfer of service amount that is currently a projection. Those are students who have special needs that transfer into the school district. If we currently don't have staffing or transportation or things like that, the state has a method through which we can apply for additional assistance. That's been an ongoing process through the business department along with the student services department. So our projection is around $400,000 to round out just under $98 million of total revenue limit authority. So then you take the total revenue authority and that number becomes a different subtraction into figuring out how do you calculate the tax levy. So you take the total revenue limit authority, you subtract the aid projection at this point off the July 15th estimate, and that subtraction creates a allowable revenue limit for the tax levy of $34,203,099. So what else goes into the tax levy? So there certainly is the allowable amount for the school district in what's called Fund 10. Then we also have the energy efficiency debt payment, which is 1.7 million. That will be done in 26-27. So we're about 2 years away from that being concluded. As well as the Fund 80 levy to get you a total tax levy just under 44 million. Then to take the tax levy to create the mill rate, you take the total tax levy for the community divided by the equalized property value, and that number multiplied by 1,000 for every 1,000 parts of your home value. You can calculate the mill rate to get to how much you actually pay in school district tax. The mill rate projection based on this calculation is $6.11. So when we talk about the equalized property value, the denominator of this function, the equalized property value, again, gets certified by DPI on October 1st. So it's important to note that aid, you can start to get an idea of where aid's going to go. Is it going to go up for us or down for us based upon this estimate from the state, right? Baird submits this now. We get the final number October 1st from DPI. Typically in our district across 4 municipalities, and then that across all of the homes in our school district, our property values typically appreciate slower than area school districts. So what they do is they create a state average. So the state average across the state for this past year was 7.7%. You can see in our school district, our property values appreciated 9.2%. So they appreciated faster, right? For all things considered for property owners in the community, that's great for them because their property values went up more than the average. But in terms of the state, for aid, that might mean that we might receive less aid marginally than what we are projected to get. By 1%, I wouldn't expect that to be significant, but something to note, that's something to consider. A lot's going to go into that calculation. That's probably like the 7th thing down for us to look at. Mainly, it's how much money other districts spend. That's the big thing to look at. So looking at the revenue limit, you can see here that our total revenue authority certainly has gone up over the last 2 years because of the biennial budget increase for schools of $325 per student. So that accounts for the last 2 years of increases. Equalization aid, as part of the biennial budget, the state increased the amount of money in the aid bucket. And certainly because of the last year and this year, well, not this year, but this past year, our district became more property poor. And we have more students and families that qualify for free and reduced lunch as well. So that number certainly went up as well. So the mill rate here, through the calculation that I just provided is a decrease. I don't have the exact percent. I have that in a future slide to share, but you can see last year was $6.69. This year projected to be $6.11. So a decrease there as well. Moving into to Fund 10, our general fund. This is the main fund the district uses to record all the financial activities. We'll jump through this. We're also going to talk through Fund 21 and Fund 27. So 21 is a special revenue trust fund that all the schools have their own Fund 21. That's how they record different donations, gifts. They also have Fund 21 revenues that would be like from sporting events, things like that. Additionally, we have Fund 27, the special education fund, which is considered the exceptional educational needs fund for the state of Wisconsin. So Fund 10 and 27, so 51% of that of the revenues in this fund are made up from general state aid. About 4% are made up of categorical aid, 33% make up of property taxes, federal grants make up for 7% of this, and then other funds make up 1%. To kind of break down our Fund 10 and 27 projected revenues, as I mentioned, that 34 million is the Fund 10 portion of property tax payments we discussed earlier. Interdistrict, this is going to be interdistrict payments in. This is going to be open enrollment in. Again, open enrollment students. We've taken less over the years, but that is a at the end of the year payment, both an expense and a revenue to us, right? So we have students that come, we receive payment in because we aren't able to count those students as third Friday members. They're not members, they're non-resident students. So it's about just over $4 million. State sources, that's going to be our aid adjustment. That includes AGR, federal sources, and all their sources rounded to 120 million. And this excludes the Fund 10 and 27 transfers because to Fund 10, the transfer is an expense. Into 27, it's considered revenue, right? So Fund 27 has to balance. So Fund 10 has to supplement because through the state of Wisconsin, for every dollar we spend under Fund 27 for students with special needs, we receive 33% of those funds back. The 67 cents of that other dollar has to come from Fund 10. And that's how the supplement happens, which is why through a biennial budget cycle, that's a main area of negotiations at the state level, because that's a significant increase in help for school districts who have a population, sometimes larger, of students who have identified disabilities. So focus and highlights, there's kind of just a few things listed here. So we have included in the budget this year, a 5% increase in CPI for all returning staff. We have the funding components of our compensation model, mainly the $200 increase for retention, and then also micro-credentials, the practice there. We have district and department budgets at 75% to help get to a balanced budget this year. We budgeted for the community recreation construction project, 68th and that lane. We also, as previous board action, as you guys know about, the teacher computer refresh for all teachers getting new computers this year for the lifespan of those are near the end. And then adding updating multi-factor authentication through Skyward and Gmail. Gmail will be coming. Skyward's already updated and running. Seems to be going well with the staff. And then lastly, the curriculum refresh for 4K through 5th grade science and SEL. So similar to revenues, we'll go through Fund 10 and 27 expenses. So about 44% are salaries, and then about 16% are benefits. So about 55, almost 60% there is salary and benefits. Purchase services, I wrote down, that's going to include pupil transportation, utilities, construction. That also, a large chunk of that is our open enrollment out expense, which is about 13 million at this point projected. That includes private vouchers and the special needs scholarship, that's 7.5 million, and then technology purchases. So a large portion of our budget, but there's some big buckets there of required expenses that we receive both revenue and their corresponding expense, right? So to kind of go through this, you can see here that our Fund 10 total expenses are about 101 million, 19 million in Fund 27 to get you about 121 million roughly in expenses. And you can, if you go back, I can kind of mention this here too. I actually have it here. I was thinking ahead. So the main thing here to focus on here is that our Fund 10 and Fund 27 revenues expenses are off by about 700,000. That's due to us having carryover dollars from last year we put into committed fund balance. So that 700,000 offset is for the teacher computer refresh. So this year at the end of the year, we would expect to have a $700,000 deficit, which is because we had money allocated from last cycle that we allocated for that reason for teacher computers. Again, I'll just mention this as we've been discussing it, but on July 5th of 23, Governor Evers signed Senate Bill 70 into law for the 23-25 state limit budget. So what that means for school districts across the state is an increase of revenue for $325 per student, and beyond until a change in legislation. Increasing the low revenue ceiling $11,000, which we were a benefit of that. Categorical aid stayed the same. That was no change. Special ed reimbursement went from 31.4% to 33.3%. So a marginal or a slight increase there. And then the creation of mental health per pupil dollars for schools to help with those services for in schools for students. Okay, other funds in the school district. We have Fund 38 and Fund 39. So Fund 38 is considered non-referendum debt service. Fund 39 is referendum debt service. We'll talk about these. So currently we have one Fund 38 eligible debt. That's our energy efficiency. So for every dollar that we receive for that, that's we receive a corresponding revenue from the community as well for that. So we have our projected payment this year is 1.7 million. You can see 131,000. That's interest. When interest rates were really low, we were able to refinance that. So that's actually that's good for us in the community because every dollar we save there, the community saves as well. And again, we have 2 more years of that, then that's completely gone as well. 39, we currently have no debt in Fund 39 as we currently have no existing referendum debt to the community. You can see the debt service levy here in Fund 38. You can see Fund 39 fell off in 17-18. And we have, I think, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years left before the energy efficiency debt's completely gone. Our credit rating, debt service and credit rating. So similar to anyone, personally, you only ever get a credit rating update when you're seeking a loan or refinance, right? You don't seek out your credit unless you go through like a credit karma or something like that. So we went through this process 3 years ago, and our financial status has only gotten better since then. But at that time, our credit rating was evaluated by both S&P, Standard & Poor's, as well as Moody's as a high grade bond. So at this time, for a credit rating, we're in a great spot. 58% of school districts are at or above higher grade, 42% are below high grade. So we're near the top of where you can be as a school district at high grade. Certainly, given our fund balance has increased and our audit findings have decreased, should we pay to get this reevaluated? I would not be surprised if we're at the highest possible grade at this point. So it's great to see that. Fund 46, this is our long-term capital improvement trust that we have had for, I believe, 7 years now. So Fund 46, we have an ongoing part of a Fund 10 budget, an expense of $325,000, sorry about that, and a projected expense of 1.239 million at this point. This, as the board knows and is apprised of, the board every year has a presentation of allowable expenses under Fund 46. So for the community watching, things like roofs, parking lots, boilers, things like that. Those are the types of expenses that come out of 46. And we have planned things like roofing, and we have planned expenses coming through for parking lots and school maintenance, things like that. And then we have things that come up that we have to fix. That 46 is a great opportunity to be able not to have to go into debt to fix things that need to be fixed, in immediacy, I would say. So that's the plan for this year, and a future presentation will be made on kind of what those items are. Our current fund balance at the end of June here was just under $9 million. You can see with the increase in revenue and decrease in expense, we're projecting about $7.8 million of total fund balance at the end of 24-25. Food service, Fund 50, this is federal dollars we receive that is specifically restricted for food service. So again, we have a CEP program in place. This is, I believe, the 3rd year for that, for all students to eat breakfast and lunch for free. To me, no better way to give back to our students in the community than to offer free breakfast and lunch to ensure every kid eats free at our schools. And it's so, again, try to mention this every time I can, the sharing form is so important that our students and families take part in that. Not just for us, it's certainly helpful for us to know where our family's income's at, but also for them, because many families, should they not know or not, get reduced fees if they're considered reduced, or free if they're below the threshold for income. A lot of families that partake in that, you never know. So it's good for our families to do that. So our total revenues are projected at 4.6 million. Again, it's projection because it's actually based on the number of kids who eat meals. We don't just get paid per kid. It's based on how many kids every single day, all year, ate breakfast and lunch. And we get paid X number of dollars for breakfast and a different number for lunch. And those numbers get updated in January. So that's the projection we have from the state and the federal government. And then our expenses, again, given our fund balance, we're required to spend down those dollars. So working on updating our kitchens in our schools, the restricted funds they can only use for food service. So we've been on working through that over the past few years. You can see here our beginning fund balance in June 30th at the end of the year was about 2.3 million, with the revenues at 4.6 and our expenses at 5 million. That gives you an ending fund balance of 1.8. DPI requires school districts to have a plan in place if they have more than 3 months of operating expense. Our operating expenses are roughly about 440,000 a month. So we're getting closer, which is great to see. Really glad that we're working through that. But this is a great plan and a great plan the district has in place. A lot of families personally, when this has happened, and every year ask about this because every year requires board action. So having a CEP provision in place for our families is really beneficial to them, I think. All right, Fund 73, as I mentioned, under statute 660603, we're required to discuss our OPEB trust, which is for employee retirement benefits. So we'll go through this. So we currently don't have a Fund 10 transfer in place for our OPEB trust. The board, under the committed fund balance during the 22 school year, we transferred $4 million to help offset costs for the OPEB redevelopment plan. So currently, the forfeitures that we have are through an HRA model where staff are given $2,000 a year in an HRA, and they're only eligible to receive those funds through the vesting schedule or 100% of retirement. So if a staff leaves in between that time, they're either eligible for $0 or that portion of the vesting. So the main source of revenues you see here are called forfeitures. That's from staff resigning or retiring, right? Based upon at that time. So we also have, given the fund balance we have in our trust, we have an estimated about $50,000 in interest. The trust actually operates off of fixed interest. So this past year was, I think it was 2.1%. So next year it has a lag. So we're hoping it's closer to 3. And then as rates come down, it might follow the cycle a little bit behind. So about 400,000. And then our disbursements, again, that number was high this past year because of people taking purchase options when they want to, retire. They can take the cash in lieu of health insurance. That means the costs come heavier at one time, but then delay it down the road, you won't see those expenses. So it's actually helpful. So about 700,000 of that is new staff on HRAs. About 400,000 of that is people opting to take cash in lieu of health insurance. So anytime that happens, it's unfortunate that year, but long-term it's helpful for us because it takes that liability off our books. So you can see here our beginning fund balance in 73. We're going to start the year with about 2.7, almost 2.8 million. Between the addition of revenues and the subtraction of expenses, about $2 million in the trust. So in a really good spot with this. I think the OPEB plan is working greatly. It's been working really well. So, and then this is required by state statute to show. This shows kind of the end of year balance from Mid-America to show you that 2.4 million. Lastly, rounding it up here, Fund 80, our community service fund. This is used to record transactions related to the district use of property for civic purposes, recreation programs, including adult education, community recreation programs, and or childcare services. Our revenues and expenses for the year are 9.5 million roughly in revenues and $11 million in expenses. This is for Shelley to run the program, salaries and benefits, including purchase services, supplies. Largest line item is capital construction. That's through the recreation project we have going on, both at the 68th Street Lane and at Irving this year. So working through those. Our projected beginning and ending fund balances for the year are 7.588 through the addition of revenues and subtraction of expenses. We're projecting to have about 6.1 million in fund balance at the end of the year. And that's mainly because the phase 2 project won't be completed by July 1. So that project will carry into the next fiscal year. So that kind of explains the fund balance there. And then moving into the following fiscal year should be we'll be able to finish that project up. So kind of moving to the end here, the projected tax levy, we'll go through this and talk through. So I mentioned the almost 44 million as the total proposed property tax levy pending aid. The breakdown here shows kind of the general fund, debt service, and the community service tax levy. This kind of shows you a level set of kind of where the tax levy has been historically. So going back to 17-18, kind of showing like a 7-year glance, the tax levy was just under 47 million. And then over time, the tax levies kind of jumped up and down, but certainly the tax levy is projected to decrease from last year and is less next year than it was 7 years ago. And just something to note that of the 43, almost 44 million, 7.5 of that's for private vouchers. So roughly 17% of that doesn't go to anyone in the school district. That's money we receive as revenue from the property taxpayers, and it goes directly to private schools. So for every dollar that we are obligated for private vouchers, the community is responsible for 100% of that. So that's just kind of something to note through the last state filing of budget. The mill rate is projected to decrease by about 8.67% due to the decrease in the tax levy as well as the increase in equalized property value. That's kind of the offset through the calculation. And then areas of continued budget consideration. So Dr. Robinson, myself, and our cabinet team, we're looking at enrollment and membership. It's been a focal point of conversation, working on where are students we haven't seen yet. So I think we're down to 88 as of this morning. I'm sure that number will be down. Our student services staff, our administrative teams are working nonstop. Like, are you coming to school? Oh, the student moved. It's like, these are things that families don't always report. So these are important information to figure out, because again, if students show up after third Friday at all, and they didn't come before, they're unable to be counted. So every student counts. And so we want to make sure that the closer our numbers are, the closer our budget is. So they go hand in hand. Certification of aid is really the next big step. I think property values have been pretty consistent from previous years. We'll certainly be looking for that. And then working through updating the budget, projected versus actuals. Should the projection numbers from enrollment come in different, we'll be working through that process and updating through the FSE committee should that number change. And there's mechanisms in the revenue limit formula to offset that. That's the declining enrollment exemption. Should our numbers come in lower, there's offsets for a year. So that buys us some time to make those adjustments in next fiscal year for the following. So it's good to know. And then really just continue planning for district programs. It's been a focal point of conversations around what are we trying to do as a district? How can the budget support that? What are the choices we have to make as a district to make these things happen? Again, under state statute 6590, we're required to show our energy efficiency. So as I mentioned, we have about $1.75 million in debt payments. Our energy exemption savings from that is about 185,000. So our actual levy to the community is 1.521 million. So with that, I would take questions from the board.
Any questions from the board regarding the presentation? Scott?
So just for clarification, if a student that lives in West Dallas or one of our surrounding areas that are part of our district, and they start school after third Friday count,
Yep.
which is early in the school year, we don't get any money for them for the whole school year. We just pay through what?
So if a student let me clarify, a student lives in our community but attends a
Right.
different public school.
Right. Or okay, so they join us on October 30th.
Yep.
So they didn't attend before that.
Yeah. Then in that scenario, we would not receive any money for the year for that kid.
And we wouldn't get reimbursed the following year either
Well, if they are enrolled with us the following year, then we would get money for that year.
for just that year.
Now, the student that's enrolled in October 1st, this example you gave, if they're with us in the January count, they would be out, we would get the membership for aid. So January is the aid count, but it's no real dollar to us. That's for the community. That's why it's so important. Both counts are significantly important. One is for the school district's revenue, which impacts the tax levy, and in January for this community, for aid purposes, which also impacts the tax levy. So, yeah. Good question though, Jay.
Other questions from the board? I had one regarding the MPS situation. What was the outcome with what the DPI is going to do with that, the overpayments MPS had received, and how that could affect what aid that we're going to get this year?
So at this point, what we've been communicated with is that MPS was over projected their budget. Their actuals came in far less than what they had budgeted, right?
Mhm.
So what happened was MPS, because the prior year I'm sorry, I said it backwards. Their budget, their actuals came in much higher than their budget, which caused the deficit, sorry. So when their actuals came in, they got more aid the following year, hence last year, right? So because that was inaccurate, the following year, we were projected this year to get $340,000 of additional aid increase to our budget, right? So that number is currently baked in. The question we have is, what are they going to do to rectify previous years? That hasn't been clarified yet, but we, at this point, know we'll get about $300,000 in additional aid for this coming year. The question will be is, are they going to retroact that? The answer really is the community, and that community should have to pay that because it should have been pushed to the taxpayers, right? But who lost from that? Every community in the state, which is why this is so important that aid gets certified at the correct time. So which was August 30th for this year. So. Yeah.
Okay, so could that possibly result in basically a reduction in aid next year if this is a one-time thing?
Yeah, I think the 300,000 is the recurring amount though for us.
Oh, it is.
I think, yeah, that's what they've clarified, that that's the amount we would expect to get from the adjustment from MPS. Now, the question is are they gonna give us a one-time increase or not? A lot of districts have asked for, can we like break that up over a certain number of years, or there's questions about that.
Right.
But
Because that could cause a spike, because if you get a whole bunch of money, then
Yeah.
that drives the property tax
Exactly.
portion down. But
Yeah.
then the next year it goes back up to balance.
exactly, and I think that's what people are worried about. Like, they don't want to have their tax levy up,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So-
Keeping it even is always best.
But we'll see. I mean, the big question is going to be is how much money did districts spend
Mhm.
last school year, because that'll drive what happens. So I don't expect there, even with our equalized property value coming in higher than area, I don't expect that to create a large change here. I don't expect it to. It'll be a $40,000-$50,000 or something like that. From a district of our size. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the board? All right, if not, then I'll move on to 6.3, our public comments from citizens on the budget. So if there's any citizens here who have any comments regarding the budget that was just presented, they can feel free to come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and happy to hear any questions that you might have. Mr. Mullen, you have some questions on the budget?
Well, I have questions about the referendum.
So that would be the second public comment section. This is specifically about the budget only, not the
It has
referendum.
to do with the budget though, because if the referendum does go through, I've got a couple suggestions that you might want to do.
Okay,
I mean, you're not going to be favorable to hear what I'm going to say, but I'm against the referendum. I went to all 4 of the referendum meetings, and the whole time was spent on, we're spending money for the teacher salaries, we're spending money for all these problems with the buildings. 1 minute, Dr. Robinson one day said, this is how we're going to improve the student performance. About a minute out of a whole presentation. I got this in the mail last week on September 3rd. If I looked for every word, we talk about budget, we're talking about fixing things. There's not a word on here about improving student performance with that referendum, not one word, and I was appalled by that. A 15-year referendum is unrealistic and impractical. State budgets go 2 years. A business model goes 3 to maybe 5 years. 15 years out is crazy. You can't predict that. You can't even predict the year. You guys said that last year you thought the board that the decline in enrollment had bottomed out. I totally disagree. Birth rates. There was a 23% decline from 2007 to 2022, with an additional 2% decline from 2022 to 2023. That's 25% decline in birth rate. To maintain a population, you need to have a birth rate of 2.1 children per woman. The present birth rate is 1.6 birth rate per woman, birth per woman. This is from the Waukesha Times. This was just last week. It says, the number of 2-year campuses has shrunk by 6 in half a year, leaving only 7 remaining. 2 more could close if enrollments do not improve immediately. Overall enrollment has dropped by more than 64%. I talked with you through an email the other day. We had 7,400 students in 2023, 2024. I talked to you about what the enrollment was as of September 2024. You said it was at presently 6787. That's a drop of 8.3% in students, number of students in 1 year. And you're trying to project out 15. Be realistic. I don't see how University of Wisconsin is sending out letters to all the seniors in the entire state, asking them to come to the universities. They're asking for students because they aren't getting them. They're not getting students anywhere. The birth rate is declining and it's going to continue to decline, and you need to address that situation. And my suggestion to you is consider the buildings that are the most costly, and you're going to have to reduce them, maybe reduce by one building. And the one that needs the most maintenance, because your student enrollment is going to keep dropping. It's almost that the handwriting is on the wall, from colleges and universities to your schools to everywhere. The population is declining. You're going to have to deal with it. And I don't think you are dealing with it. I don't think you're even coming close to dealing with it. So that's my point. I think you're going to have to consider consolidation, and I'd consolidate the ones with the most repairs. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the board about the budget presentation? Seeing none, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Norris for some closing remarks.
So at this point, just again, want to thank the board and our administrative team, certainly the community and our teachers for the support through the process. It's been a lot of effort and time on their account as well, to get us here tonight. And certainly it's a collaborative effort, because the budget, while it's made up of a lot of things, it can't be made up of everything. So there's certainly give and take everywhere. I think our referendum reflects that of the budget coming up. And so I think, just want to thank everyone for their time and look forward to some of the dates coming up to certify this with the board in future meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Norris. Appreciate all the work that you and your team has done over the last 9 months, as you said, to get to this point. And we'll just look forward to this couple other dates so we can get some actual final numbers. And for the public who are watching this, if there are any questions regarding this presentation that you might have, there's a reason why I do this a month in advance. So please feel free to send your questions to the district, and we can be sure to answer those before the board will take action at the end of October. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to item 7, our superintendent's report this evening. Go ahead, Dr. Robinson.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Set up the presentation. We'll be brief tonight. Before I start, I want to thank all of our students for coming tonight and being patient with us as we went through the budget presentation. So we'll get to you guys in just a second, okay? I appreciate you guys being patient. 137 school referendum questions on the November ballot. The November election in the state of Wisconsin will see 137 referendum questions in 120 districts, with 57 asking for temporary or permanent authority to increase revenue limits and 22 for permanent authority. Additionally, 58 borrowing referendums will be posed for bond approval for major school facilities construction projects. This is an increase from 23, is a significant increase from last year, with passage rates declining. A list of all referendums is available, and that's available by clicking that particular link on our website. As we just talked about the budget situation and finance with MPS, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee voted 5-4 to order an audit to analyze the DPI's and monitoring of school district finances following the financial reporting issues at MPS. And so the committee expanded the scope of the audit to include additional schools that report financial data to DPI, including choice and charter schools. The audit will evaluate DPI policies, staff time spent reviewing financial information, timeliness of submission, policies for tracking audits, and actions taken based on financial information. So this is really targeted around the procedures and process that DPI has put into place to prevent these things happening from a school district standpoint.
So it has absolutely nothing to do with us individually. This is just more from the guidelines that the state is requiring for schools to submit. Our district recognitions. I want to thank the entire community for coming out to our second back to school bash. I believe our attendance doubled the attendance from the previous year. It was an truly outstanding time. I want to thank the committee who put it together, as well as our community partners. I believe we had 25 community partners who participated. Want to say 3 news organizations came out to the event. Also, thanks to Chartwell, as well as our rec departments, our schools, and the entire community for coming out and supporting the event. It was a major success. So we're definitely looking forward to planning the 3rd annual back to school bash. And I thought the first one was going to be hard to beat, but wow, you guys really did a job of blowing that one out of the water. So again, great job. Our Knights of Columbus coat delivery. I want to again thank Knights of Columbus, Mr. Jerry Falk, who donated over 400 coats to Horace Mann Elementary School. And those coats will certainly come in handy when the winter comes around, hopefully a little later on, but you guys know what I mean. This is definitely a gift that is very timely and is very much from the heart. And so we really want to thank the Knights of Columbus. I did not get a chance to see Mr. Jerry on last Thursday, but I'm pretty sure I'll see him this Thursday at Rotary. So again, thanks to Knights of Columbus for their delivery. Community visits and meetings this past week. We had, again, I've mentioned the back to school bash. I actually delivered slushies to school leadership teams on last Friday. So I was driving around and trying to catch teams on that Friday before school started. I just thought it was a good idea to give them a cool beverage right before the weekend, and they definitely appreciated it. I want to also thank Dairy Queen on Greenfield for helping us out and really supporting that major order that we put in for slushies. First day of school, I did have an interview with WISN. Still trying to get the the tape for that particular interview, but we were able to educate the community as well about the referendum during that particular interview. 9-3 and 9-4 cross functional team meetings following the first 2 days of school. Really just trying to make sure that we are crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's and making sure that we have smooth first 2 days of school. So that was very beneficial. We brought all of our district leadership together to discuss how things were going for the first 2 days. I also attended Rotary. CISA 1 Superintendent's monthly PAC meeting was on last Friday that I attended. And I had the honor of actually attending the Nathan Hale Girls and Boys Cross Country Meet at Greenfield Park on Friday. There were 19 other schools there. There were a lot of people at the event. And my understanding is that Hale boys placed 3rd. Am I saying that right?
Nice job.
So we're excited. When I tell you there were a lot of schools there, there were a lot of schools. Cross country is some stiff competition out there. It's very competitive. But tonight we do have our fall sport captains that we want to recognize. And so, Shelley, are you going to assist me with this?
Yes.
All right. You have the ADs here?
I do.
Okay, I can't see anybody.
I'd like to invite up Katie Rucka from West Dallas Central and Greg Lucas from Nathan Hale, our 2 high school athletic directors.
Yep, we're gonna get a picture, no, have them stand up. When your name is announced, we'll do this by team. If you can just stand up and be recognized by our board, and then I think we will be doing some photos. Okay, and then Carolyn will direct us kind of when the photos will take place.
Do you want them to stand up and sit down or stand up and come up here? We don't need them to come up until the very end.
The very end.
Yeah.
So that would just, when you're announced, stand up, we'd love to recognize all of you. And then at the end, we'll take a picture of everyone together.
Right.
And if I can just share before this, I think you guys all recall, we invited both of our football teams. And under Dr. Robinson's recommendation, we're gonna do this now at the start of each sports season, so we'll get into more of a regular cadence and have all the sports teams coming on time. So I guess I want to thank all of you, our athletes and our coaches. For very short notice, you probably were given to be here with us this evening. But now that we have a plan, we'll make sure you get more notice. So thank you all.
All right, West Allis Central has 3, including football, West Allis Central Bulldog sports for the fall. Other than football, we have cross country. Our captains are Brian De Leon and Will Eggert. And our girls volleyball captains could not be here today. And our head coach, who actually works for the rec department, is double dipping as varsity coach and JV2 coach. So she's coaching, which is why she can't be there. So if anyone knows of a JV2 girls volleyball coach, we need of one. But our captains for girls volleyball are Sydney Sams and Milena Ruiz. We also have there's 4 co-op sports. West Allis Central is kind of the home of 3 of them. For fall, it's girls swim and dive, and our captains are Deborah Snyder, Bridget Doan, and Ella Bennett. We have boys volleyball here with their coach, Marcus Meyer. We have Liam Devine and Nolan Roush. And then our boys soccer team is actually currently playing versus Wisconsin Lutheran, so they cannot be here, but their captains are Yadiel Barbosa and Austin Lemanchik.
All right, for Nathan Hale, we have a few here from each team and a couple missing from each team, so we'll go through these here. For boys cross country, we got John Gruchich and Eli Sag. For girls cross country, we have Anna Coney. For girls volleyball, we have Lauren Bergman and Peyton Sogstead. And in the fall, I get the co-op team of girls tennis, and representing girls tennis is Hannah Cody. And I should say too, our girls cross country coach Courtney Frederick is with us tonight.
Right, so if you guys want to. All right, we'd love to get to all the athletes and coaches and ADs that you guys all want to come up here. We'll do a couple levels. You want to bring out what they did. Yeah, you have to take yourself. Same here.
Everybody's so tired, tall.
I know you guys.
Why is it so tall?
You got to stand on the desk, the 2 of you.
Yeah, half the board would be the public.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be like senior success.
You mind?
Yeah, we could photo bomb from back here.
Oh, right. There we go. Okay, don't worry about me. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Give Liam bunnies.
You want to say the word in here too?
Oh, why not?
I mean, you got room for us.
Going up there too.
Shrinking the age. Just lay across the front.
Okay, hold on.
Well, that's perfect. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Love the season, everybody. Love the season. Have a good season. I think he did that on purpose.
Probably. Sneaky, sneaky.
Matt, I think Jeff missed the picture as he started talking to Shelley.
You guys don't want to stay?
I just want to thank all of our athletes for taking time out. A reminder, these are student athletes, so I'm sure they have busy schedules and probably some homework and studying they need to do. So
Yep.
thank you again to all.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
And that concludes the superintendent's report tonight.
All right. All right, excellent. Where am I? Here we go. Item 9, our board reports this evening. So I'm sorry, no public comments. Is there, well, we already had the one public comment that was really should have been done there. Is there anyone who is here who would like to address the board, or if there's anyone who is in Zoom, there should be a link in the chat for addressing the board. The person that signed up has already given their public comment, so I'll wait 15 seconds if there's any additional person who would like to address the board. Seeing none, we'll close public comments at this time. Move on to item 9, our board reports for the evening, starting with 9.1, a review of the board calendar. So today is September 9th, and we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and we also had our public budget hearing. On Monday, September 16th at 6 p.m., we have a board workshop on SAIL, continuous improvement. And then on Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Moving on to 9.2, our board committee reports. We have one this evening, 9.2.1, college and career readiness. Ms. Kaiser.
All right, thank you. So the College and Career Readiness Committee met tonight before our board meeting. We got a really nice DLVA update. For those who's watching, that's our Deeper Learning Virtual Academy. Devin Smith, Dr. Devin Smith, the principal of DLVA, and Jody Landish updated us on the school. They have a mission, vision, and theory of action that's evolved over their 3 years of existence. Dr. Smith shared celebrations, which included improved participation and attendance, restructuring systems to provide equitable support for students and staff, and brought an 80-20 model of virtual education in alignment with industry standards with more asynchronous student work. DLBA is in the process of analyzing enrollment trends, and a full board workshop will occur in October on the 28th. And that's all we spoke about.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Does any board members have questions regarding that they would like to ask Ms. Kaiser, or any agenda items for her committee to consider in the future? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Move on to 9.3, board member reports of community events. Any community events board members attended they would like to report on? Ms. Kaiser?
I have attended now the first and second annual school bash, and it was fantastic. I think we gave away several hundred t-shirts regarding the referendum that night. People were very excited to learn more. I'm glad that we had information out there in Spanish as well. So it was very nice. And some of the new staff I've been seeing around town in various locations, and they felt very excited to be here. So it's been nice to see those new teachers fresh out of UWM excited to be here.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else like to report on events they attended? Ms. Steele?
You be fun.
No.
I don't want to steal your
Oh,
thunder.
go right ahead.
I just wanted to thank everybody who, for the back to school bash, it was really, the weather was phenomenal. It was a great event. It was great seeing so many families there. I also had an opportunity this past Friday to see our Hale Marching Huskies play at the football game and watch our varsity football team. So if you ever get a chance on a Friday night coming up here, I think homecoming is coming up on the 27th for Hale. I don't know what it is for Central, but it's always just a great opportunity. It's great to see everybody cheering. The kids always have a theme every week. So if you can get out there, and we have a phenomenal band too. So, and my kid's on it. So of course, I'm gonna very enjoyable.
Thank you very much, Ms. Steele. Mr. Becker?
Took my two volleyball middle schoolers over to watch the girls volleyball tournament at Central last Friday. It was great to see the field house in full use and kind of imagine what it would be like with a full tournament and packed. So great to see it in use. Great to see our kids in action.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to report on events they attended? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to 9.4, other updates and information items. I just wanted to mention that this weekend will be the first canvassing event for the district on Saturday. So we want to encourage as many people as possible to come to get out information regarding our referendum. And again, this is and not an advocation, but is informational, providing information on what is on the referendum, how much it's for, what it's going to be used for, and so that we want to ensure that everyone has the proper information to be able to make an informed decision. And so that's what this is, the first of 3 that we'll be having. So I look forward to seeing, I'm sure, a number of our board members there, many from district administration, but we also want community members as well, and students, if they want to participate, can also do that as well. So that will be at FLW, I believe, starting at, I think there's 7:30 kickoff there's going to be instructions provided and as far as like how to go about canvassing for those who've never done it before, and just really make people sure are comfortable. And then I believe we're breaking up by elementary school area. So going to the elementary school and kind of focusing on that for this portion of the canvassing. So I look forward to seeing everyone on this Saturday. And that's all that I have for my updates and information items. So move on to our item 10, our consent agenda for this evening, starting with 10.1, approval of our Board of Education minutes from August 26th. 10.2, our employment summary, and 10.3, our supplementary contracts. Does that maybe things separated out, Ms. Kaiser?
Just a clarification, GT teacher leader was GT for under supplemental. Is it gifted and talented? Okay, I just wanted to make sure someone asked me what that was about, so thank you.
Yeah, because we changed it from GCT to.
Right, I just want to double check that.
Second.
So we had a motion by Mr. Sikich and a second by Mr. Burns. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to our lone action item for this evening, 11.1, our Knights of Columbus donation. Dr. Robinson.
So during last meeting, we had we received a check for $7,500 from Knights of Columbus. I'm going to use the word received. However, we gave it right back to them that night because it had not been approved by the board. And so to formally accept that check, we are asking the board to approve the action item. And he will bring it back to us in the morning once you guys approve that check.
Question, if we do approve it, they will give it to us, so?
Yeah, they will give it. They will give it to us. Yes, sir. Want to make
You've already got
things
the
work harder.
Actually, the jacket's already been delivered, so.
Yeah, just not in use.
Approve.
Wait, Ms.
Oh,
Carr?
sorry.
I just have a quick question about that. Who decides how that money will be used? Is that something that you would do, Dr. Evans?
Yeah, so it is something that I decided. So Mr. Jerry, in his conversation throughout the year, and when he told me, hey, we're going to donate the 7,500, he designated that Shared Journeys would receive a portion of that money. That was what he requested from us. Okay. And so from that request, we've decided that 4,000 of those dollars will go to Shared Journeys to buy anything as far as bedding for the babies, strollers. I'm old now.
Bassinets.
Yeah, you got the bassinets. It's been a long time since I had to stop at that section. Not sure my age right now. So that's where the 4,000 will go to, and then the other 3,500, we've decided we're working with the youth advisors to create what I consider wraparound closets at our secondary and elementary schools. And so when we had the youth advisors to present in the spring, I talked about expanding their role a bit to being more around wraparound supports. And so that's where the other 3,500 will go to. It won't be just for secondary. It will also go into our elementary schools as well.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Move to approve. Second.
Well, we already have a motion from Mr. Keller and we have a second
We
from
did.
Mr. Burns.
Oh, now I got three.
So,
We're good.
so now I need to ask if there's any other additional questions that you might have about the checks or the codes. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? right, that passes. And before we move on to adjournment, I do want to thank once again the Rotary for their generous donation to our district and to our students. It is the Knights of Columbus, I'm sorry, very much appreciated.
Mhm.
And I think that it will be doing a lot of good for our district this year. So thank you so much. And they are a continual supporter of our district. This is not the first time that they have supported programs in our district. So I did want to thank them for that. So with that, I look for a motion
Move to adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
So I've been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.